As you may already know, le passé composé is one of the first tenses you study as you learn French, and it's also one of the most complex ones. So in this video, I will go over when it is used, how it's conjugated, including when to use être and when to use avoir, and irregular verbs, forming sentences, and finally, reflexive verbs. So, to start, when do we use passé composé? It is used when referring to completed one and done actions of the past. For example, il a mangé du pain, which means he ate some bread. The reason it's called passé composé is because the tense is composed of two essential parts. There's the auxiliary verb or helping verb, which is avoir or être, conjugated in the present tense, and there's the main verb in its past participle form. So how is passé composé conjugated? These tables show the standard conjugation pattern of verbs ending in er, ir, and re. What these tables are essentially saying is that for verbs ending in er, like manger, you cut off the er, keep the stem, and add an e with an acute accent, also known in French as e accent aigu. And that's how you get your past participle. For verbs ending in ir, like finir, you cut off the ir, keep the stem, and add an I, and that's how you get fini. For verbs ending in re, like perdre, you cut off the re, keep the stem, and add a u. That's how you get perdu. Knowing this pattern, you'll now be able to conjugate most verbs in the passé composé. But there are some past participles that play by their own rules. Here's a list of the most common ones. Forming sentences in passé composé. The formula to make sentences in this tense is the following. Take your subject, conjugate the helping verbs avoir or être in the present tense, and finish with the main verb in its past participle form. For example, j'ai mangé, elle a gagné, nous avons dormi, je suis sorti, il est parti, nous sommes tombés. But when exactly do we use avoir and when do we use être? The rule of thumb is to always use avoir unless the main verb is one of the following. A lot of these verbs refer to movement or a certain change of setting and use être as their auxiliary or helping verb. But it's important to note that some of these verbs can use the helping verb avoir when a direct object is involved. For example, je suis sorti, j'ai sorti mes devoirs. Nevertheless, the vast majority of these verbs will use être. Another important thing to note is that for these verbs, the past participle of the main verb needs to agree in gender and number of the subject. You need to add the extra e, n, or s to agree with the subject if it's female, and or plural. Reflexive verbs. These verbs always use être as their auxiliary verb. But what exactly is a reflexive verb? It is a verb where the subject performs the action on itself. The action is being reflected back onto the subject. You can identify them with the word se in front, such as se brosser les dents, which means to brush one's teeth, se raser la barbe, to shave one's beard, se laver les mains, to wash one's hands. Unlike the other verbs, before conjugating these verbs in passé composé, you need to add the correct reflexive pronoun. Me for je, te for tu, Ce for il, elle, or on. Nous for nous. Vous for vous. Ce for il or elle. The formula to conjugate reflexive verbs in Passé Composé is the following. Add the subject, add the correct reflexive pronoun, add the être in the present tense, and add the main verb in the past participle. For example, je me suis lavé. I took a shower. Here are two other examples. The Passé Composé does take some getting used to. It can be scary and overwhelming at first. But with enough practice and exposure to the language, you will get there. So don't worry and keep practicing, and you will be fine.